I had a car. I remember when I was in high school, they had two avenues you could travel. They had, you take all your regular subjects, but to fill out your curriculum, the boys had to go to VOAG, and the girls had to go home economics. We didn't have no other choice. Well, I had enough of VOTEC. I had enough of that at home. I had to haul coal, cut wood, carry water. I had to do all this in a house with girls. I had to do all this. So I wasn't going, and when you did that in high school, you did it for the teachers. You pruned their trees, you cut their grass. They were first. I decided that I was not going to do that. So I asked to go into home economics, and they let me. And believe it or not, I'm very proud of the fact that I became the president of the DuBois High School Home Economics Division, and I was also elected president of the West Virginia State Home Economics Division. Nobody had ever done it before. No male had ever done it before. I was really thought that was high cotton, but I was really pretty pleased about that. I didn't mind. And after I joined, a lot of guys, because the only thing you had to do was, only criteria you had to get into home economics, you either had to bake a cake or make an apron. Well, I had plenty of girls that made me an apron the first day, so I was in. So it was just like that, and the teacher knew it. But I was like a teacher's pet. They kind of liked me. I was manageable, I got along with them. And of course, my uncle was a teacher. He was a very good teacher, but he was a heck of a football coach.
What was his name?
George Scott. He was that's what surprised me is when they integrated. I was really surprised because our teachers hadn't really prepared themselves. They did sitting in high cotton along with the black schools, but when they integrated, they had to come up with some training and some degrees. And my uncle, who was a high school basketball coach, got demoted to Pax Elementary over here in Fayette County because he didn't have the degrees. He didn't have the classes or whatever you had to have. Most of the black teachers got fired. They only had a few black teachers that stayed in that school when they took the school. They completely took the school over. And and I think there's maybe 3 out of the 15 teachers we have, I think 3 may have stayed. The rest of them got sent out to these elementary. But I had nothing to do with that because I was gone. In fact, I didn't even know they were going to integrate. They let us out of school and never told us. But
did you play football?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah, football.
Now we haven't had someone talk about the whole football regimen at DuBois. So
we had
tear it up.
Pretty good football.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. And my uncle being the coach, he decided I should know everything there was to know about football. I played every position. I started off one game playing the end, went right across the line, center, right across the other side of the line, right in the backfield. I wound up being the quarterback because I knew more than most, because I'd done most of it. But I played defense, offense. We didn't have no defense, offense. We played them both. But yes, basketball, did that too. Wasn't very good at basketball, but I played it. I had to. We had some pretty good teams. In fact, the year that I graduated, we had run-up state champions. And we were one of the small black schools.
Can you name some of the other black high schools that were in that league? You had to travel quite a distance, didn't you, for some of them?
Some of them, yes. The ones that we were mostly familiar with. In Fayette County they had 2 black schools. I guess you know that.
I'm not.
One in Montgomery and one in Mount Hope. That's the 2 black schools in Fayette County. Of course, you had Beckler Stratton over here at Beckler. That was our main rival. Then we had one in Gary, one in Excelsior, even had one out in Hinton. It wasn't in Hinton, but somewhere close to Hinton. I forget what they call it, but yeah, had one in Lewisburg. Now these are small schools, but they had them. Had one in Huntington. These are the teams that we played: Huntington, Charleston, Beckley, Montgomery. They all had pretty good football teams. Every major city had a black school or surrounding, pretty close. You know, there's several black schools. There is a book out. In fact, I saw it over in my barber shop, where somebody has gotten all this history. You probably need to get that book. And it got all the players, all the history about the black schools.
Wow, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, wow.
So these other black high schools were set up like DuBois in that they served fairly large areas.
Yes.
So you had kids coming from.
Yes. Over in Raleigh County, you had Beckley, you had Stratton. Bert Primer was out there it's in Raleigh County. But I think you had 3 schools in Raleigh County. Conley, Bert Primer, and Beckley that's what they call, but they're in the Raleigh County area, right next to us. Yeah. There were only one, I could believe, one in Charleston, which really, they had the biggest high school, and then they had one in Huntington. Those were probably the 2 biggest black schools, because they didn't have them farmed out like we did. But we had to be. Montgomery, you couldn't send kids from Montgomery up here to go to school. I don't know if you know anything about the state of West Virginia. Montgomery's across the mountain. But that's why they had 2 black schools in Fayette County, and they had 3, maybe 4 in Raleigh County. But we all competed against each other all the time, yeah. It was a real rivalry. And what surprised me was when they called for integration, you know, and I think I heard my wife says that we was only in DuBois for 1 year. I think we were in there 2 years. 56, 54, 55, 56. I think we was there in 54, 55, 56. 54, 55, yeah, 56 we graduated. But I think we was in there 3 years before they took the school, before they integrated. And they didn't integrate Beckley 10 years later. I never understand why that happened. But they made us right away. Of course, I was gone, and it appears that everything was all right, but after that, like I said, when I had a scholarship to Marshall University, and believe it or not, in music. I used to call myself to sing. And it was not a full scholarship. It was, I don't know what they call it, it was helping, you know, they helped me. If I made their glee club, they would help me in. But I couldn't afford to do that. I just couldn't. So when I graduated, the next day I jumped on the train going to San Antonio, Texas to be in the Air Force.
Jumped on a train to go to Texas?
They bused us from Beckley, the recruiting station, down to Prince to get on the train to go to Texas. That's when I started my Air Force career. That was something in itself too. That was something that you never hear about. But when I went in the Air Force, I got arrested before I made it to the Air Force base. I was under house arrest. The train came through here. There was one train load, it had 70 men on each train. 70 Pennsylvanians and 70 West Virginians going to San Antonio, Texas. And it had nothing to do with race. But the guys from Pennsylvania come over and just chatting and talking. And then when they got ready to leave, they said, well, we'll be back over here later. We're going to kick y'all butt. And they said, oh yeah, you know, come on over. Well, they were talking about having a pillow fight. You know, something to do because we done got bored. The conductor come through there and heard this. And the first thing he says was, I bet not catch no fighting in here. And I don't know what happened, but some guy in Pennsylvania hit him upside the head with a pillow. And he jumped up and ran out of there. 10 hours later, we was in Kansas. They stopped the train and made us all get off. I'm talking about the MPs, police right, and read us the riot act about a riot. And had it in the paper that we had a race ride. It had nothing to do with race, nothing. We had a race ride on this train. And my mother, and they would, when we got there, they wouldn't let us ride home. They wouldn't let us, it was an arrest. They would not let us, our mothers were going crazy because they knew we got arrested. It was all in the papers and everything. It was 2 weeks before I could tell my mother that there was nothing to that. It was just, you know. But that happened.
Just a pillow fight.
Yeah, it wasn't, we didn't even get to do that. They just hit the conductor upside the head. This guy from Pennsylvania hit the conductor upside the head with that pillow, and that started it all. He thought we was going to have a pillow fight. He heard about the pillow fight. He come in and tried to threaten us. They didn't care nothing about him. These guys off the street in Pennsylvania can't have on the conductor. They popped down. West Virginia boys were a little bit more reserved there, because we come up a little different. But one of them black guys hit that guy's pillow up inside that guy's head, and it was all over from there. We were both squads of Pennsylvania and West Virginia was under total house arrest for 2 years down there. We couldn't go off. We had no privileges.
For how long?
For two weeks. 2 weeks.